Okay, YouTube, back on the 53 Ford Jubilee, and I need some transmission shims to shim the main shaft, the preload on the bearings, and these are kind of hard to come by, so I'm going to make them. So the plan is, I've got some shim stock. I'm going to take this piece of aluminum here and I'm going to bolt it to the faceplate on my lathe. And I'll trim this down, I'll get it a little closer to size. and that aluminum will go, or the shim will go here. I'm going to make a sandwich basically. So I'll take this block and I need to mill it up. I'll mill it up. It'll be about the size of the piece of shim that, you know, when it's done, it'll be square. I might 45 the corners on it, and it'll have this big hole bored in it. In the center of this, I'll put a tapped hole. So I'll make a sandwich. So all the shim stock will be underneath here. And then I'll make a couple of toe clamps. I'll come out here and I'll toe clamp this thing down like this. I'll take it to the lathe and I'll bore that big hole. Well, after I bore that big hole in there, I'll leave the toe clamps on. And then I'll come back and I'll have a big washer made, and I'll drill a hole in this washer. And then that'll clamp this down, and I'll come back to the mill and I'll drill the holes. And I might mill the outside of it, or I might just trim it up with some tin snips. The outside's really not all that important. So that's the plan. I think the first thing I'll do is take this to the lathe while I still got the 3-jaw chuck on there, and I'll just drill me a clearance hole right in the center of this. So let's get started. Okay, on to the lathe here. I'll just I already have these jaws opened up, and I'll just stick this thing back here. That'll keep it from going anywhere. We're not going to be doing that much to it. Use a spot drill, just a little. I like these spot drills over a center drill. Years ago, you didn't have a spot drill, or not that I knew of. You had center drills, and you always had to be careful about the little drill on the end of it breaking off in your workpiece. And these spot drills are a lot more forgiving on that. That's why I like to use them over a center drill. Alright, here we go. Just a clearance drill for a 1/2 inch bolt. That's probably what we'll use right down the center. Alright, that's all there is to that part, I think. That's just going to be a giant washer for us. Nothing to it, pretty simple. I was pretty lucky to find I'd use this for something else. This is a slug out of a part I made one time or something. Looks like I might have had it bolted down to something, I don't know. That'll work good right there. So the next thing I think we'll do is I'll mill out the top piece there. The part that's going to look like the shim. So it's on to the mill. We'll do that next. Okay, this was just a piece of scrap and I cut it off with something. So this needs to be about 4 1/4 square. So I'm going to go ahead and mill this off and take a light cleanup on this, and then we'll flip it over, mill the other side to 4 1/4, And then we'll lay it down in the vise and side mill it and put some holes in it and stuff. So here we go. Now I think instead of feeding it this way, I'll feed it this way. That way it won't pop up out of the vise on me. Wouldn't lock this table down. Alright, now we'll come over here and we'll kind of pick this edge up. Lightly pick it up, maybe stay just a little bit off of it. And go ahead and take this last little bit out of here. Put a clean up cut. Alright, there we clean that up. File it up here. Flip it over. Beat it to size. Nothing real fussy on this deal, it's just a fixture. This end will take about, make sure there's nothing in there. Take a light clean up on this side, take it out and measure it and it'll tell us how much more to take off. Take about 15, I think. And we'll take it out and measure it. Alright, that's about 4 inches, 325. Get you around here a little better. Jam it up a little bit. So we got about 75 more. Take off of it. Okay, pretty clean. Take 50 and a 25, so here's a rough cut of about 50. And a 25. Okay, let's see how we did. There's about 250, 250, that's pretty good. Okay. Now, we don't have any idea how square this part is, so we can't just flip it over in the vise 90 degrees from what we've been cutting and rest on one of these factory edges. See, that's been sawed, you know, and I don't know how this edge here has been produced. Oh, that was maybe on my bandsaw or something. But we don't. So right now I've got these two are parallel, but I don't know how square this is right here, so I don't just want to set it in my vise like this and start milling, because however out of square this is, it'll always be that way. So what we're going to do, we're going to open up this vise jaw, and we're going to take the two surfaces that I just milled, and we're going to hold them in the jaw of the vise like this. I'll get some parallels here in a second. And we're going to side mill this. And my vise is set true with my table, you know. So when I go and side mill this, then I've made this side square to that side. And then I can either flip it around and side mill it and put the holes in, which is probably what I'll do. Go ahead and side mill to get my dimension that I want. And then I can put my holes in, and we'll be done with this part. So, let me file that burr off there just a little bit. Right, let me get them parallels. I think these will do. And again, I'm going to take this surface that I milled, and that's going to go against my vise jaw, just like that. And we want this to be 4 1/4, so we need at least that much part hanging out. Oops, better make that up. So if we measure about 4/200 to that vise jaw, that'll make sure we don't run into the vise with our end mill. Alright, so we're just going to take a cleanup cut on that edge right there with the side of that end mill. Come on here and lightly pick it up, kind of like that. Take about 10 off of it. Okay, now that edge is square with these other two edges. So we could either go back to the setup the way we had it, or we can just flip it around, which is what I'm going to do. See, so that's good and square. Pile the burrs off of it. Snap him back up. Now what we'll do, take a light cleanup cut again. Zero our readout. And we'll measure it. Four, 3, 29. We'll say 4, 3, 30. So we've got 80 thousandths we need to take off of that to get to 4, 250. So we'll take about, let's try a 50 off the table. Go up to 70. And we'll take a final pass of 10 thousandths. There's our 80. Make sure it didn't take a little push cut. Alright, we'll check that. That should be it. We should have that squared up. Okay, Ford 250. That's just what we wanted. I'll leave one of these transmission shims on it. I think that's exactly what we want right there. That'll work out good. Now we're gonna drill a starter hole. We might bore it with this end mill so we can pick it up on the lathe. Just because we'll go ahead and bore this big hole out on the lathe, we'll put a starter hole in here that's in relation to the outside. But the next thing we need to do is drill these 4 holes right here, these clearance holes in here. So since we just milled that edge, I think this is a reground cutter. I got my readout set at 0 where I just milled this edge. So this cutter's 720 thousandths. So if we take half of 720, that would be a 360. And if we move our table in 360 thousandths, which would be half of that cutter, then we'll be pretty close to on the edge of that part. I'll go ahead and zero that readout. So if I come down here and just kind of look at it, see that's about half. So I've basically just picked up the edge of that part. Now we'll go ahead and put an indicator in there, and we'll check that, and we'll pick up the other edge back here. Get this in out. Okay, I put that drill chuck in and the indicator. I kind of touched on this in one of my other videos. This is my preferred method to pick up an edge. Some people call it breaking an edge. Some people call it tramming an edge. It's a pretty accurate way to pick up an edge. Now, I've already got a 0 set here on my X because I had that end mill in there. So we're basically going to check that 0 and see how close it is. I know you guys can't see the top of this indicator, but the trick to this is, the first thing you want to do is you want to turn your indicator so the body of your indicator is pretty parallel with the edge that you're going to pick up. And then you spin it around and you get it, you can kind of eyeball it parallel again. And what you're looking for is the center of this little ball on the end of your needle. You want it to kind of be centered on that edge, because if your indicator's tipped out like this or tipped out like this, it won't break 0 correctly. So that doesn't look too bad to me. So we're going to see how that looks. So we're going to bring it down here, just lock the quill, put a little tension on the indicator, and then we're going to find the low spot with the indicator, and then we'll zero the indicator dial and double check our 0. Okay, then we'll raise it up, spin it around 180, bring it down close. And you need something that is flat. And for years I've used this. This is just an old scrap carbide insert that's been factory ground on the top. So you need something that you can hold up here that's flat. So we're going to hold that up against that edge. And then we're going to find that low spot. I know you guys can't see this, but this indicator is showing plus 4.5. So that means that I'm off of this edge about 2 1/4 thousandths. So we're gonna move it half of it, which is 2 1/4. We're gonna re-zero our dial, find the low spot, and then we run around here 180, drop it down, and we want it to be on 0, and that's pretty close. I mean, this old mill, you know, you're not gonna get into tenths like you would on a jig bore or a jig grinder or something. But we're gonna call that 0. And then we're going to do the same thing for the y-axis. Now that I've got that indicator set, usually you just come up here. We'll come on in about half, which I believe would be 2 1/8 in our x. And then we'll move up here in y. And we'll just do the same thing. Come over here and bring this till this indicator comes up to 0. Find the low spot. Okay, there it is, right there. Then we spin it around. Hold our block up there. And that's showing about 1, so we'll about a half. Okay. Come around here and check it. That's pretty close to 0, so we're going to 0 the y right there. Now we've picked up these two edges, but I want 0 to be in the middle of this part. So that's going to be 2 1/8 inches in. So I'll just run it in here to 125. And I got the X setting on 125, and we'll go ahead and 0 our readout right there. And that puts us in the center of that part. Now I just wanted to show you that, picking up that edge. So right now, just for a quick check, I'll come out here and make sure that I am on the center of the block. See that? Off just about 1/1000 from center. That's not too bad. Okay. Okay, that's good. Alright, now we're going to drill 5 holes. We put a 1/4 inch reamed hole in the center for a center reference for the lathe, and also we're going to use that 1/4 inch hole to measure out some 45s that we're going to cut on it. And we're going to lay in the four clearance holes for the shim that we're making. So using the spot drill that we used earlier on the lathe, we'll go ahead and put that in. And we'll go ahead and spot us our hole right here on 0. Okay. And then we're going to come over 1 inch 14. We're going to go up 1 inch 4/14, like that. shimmer and X, 1" 414. Come down in Y, same amount. And back over to the last one, same amount. Okay, now we'll get our shim and check it. I think that's going to work. Now, we'll drill a 27/64 hole in the 4 outer holes. Good. Come up 1" 414 just like before. And the last one's at 1" 414. Okay. Now, we'll move back to the center. Put a 15/64 hole in. And we'll get a 1/4" reamer and ream that thing. All that's for, we're going to open, this hole's going to get opened up on the lathe. The only thing this is for going to be a reference for us on the lathe. Something we can indicate to make sure we get our big hole in the center. And I'm also going to use it for a reference to measure these 45s that I'm fixing to put on here. Okay, that's probably it for that. We'll go ahead and chamfer them holes. Change the speed here. I got the old belt pulley. Okay, now drive a dowel in there. Set this up at a 45 in this vise. We'll mill some corners off here at a 45. We'll use that dowel to measure it. That's what we'll do next. Okay, I've changed the setup on the mill. Got it kicked up on a 45 using a 45 angle block. These are pretty handy to have around. So we're going to touch off the corner there. Drop it down a little bit. I'm going to take a couple of light cuts here. Let's see where we're at. I've also installed a dowel. If you remember, I reamed that hole, the center of that hole. So I've put a dowel in here. I'm going to use that dowel as a reference to measure so I get these 45s the same. So for now we're just going to use our calipers. So we want it to be 2 inches 286 thousandths. And right now we're at 550, so we got quite a bit more to go. So let's go ahead and we'll take 100. And again, I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to use my Y because I don't want to take a chance of tipping my part. That was 100. I'll take another 100. Like I need to move my X over a little bit. There we go. Yeah, we'll take another measurement here. Move you back around. I kind of bumped you. A little bit hard working around the camera. So right now we're about 2 inches 355. We'll take a 50 cut of about 50. And then I'll depth mic it instead of using those calipers. Alright, so now we're at 2 inches 303. We got 17 more. That ought to do it. Two inches 287. 2 inches 287. That's pretty good. That's within a thousandth. Okay. Now it's just the same thing. Brush that off a little bit. For the other corners. Deburr that. How that looks on our shim. Before we get too carried away. So that'll come right up to the tangent point of that arc there. I think this is going to be the profile of the shim. I'm not going to do all this radius stuff. It's not necessary. So I'll go ahead and bob these other 4 corners. And that'll be it for that. That part will be done. These little deals here are pretty handy. They're not too expensive. I think I might have got this from Inco. It comes in a set. You can get a 30-degree block and a 45-degree block. So that's how we're going to set these angles. It's a little bit tricky to do by yourself, but there we go, I think. those are pretty handy to have. It's better than kicking your head or just twisting your vise or anything like that. So, alright, I'll go ahead and cut these other four corners off, and we'll get on. We might make some clamps next.